I do feel like a newsroom is like, it's like a team. It's sports. It feels it's sort of the same. You're on deadline. Oh my gosh, you have to like meet the moment. You have to get it done. So maybe it's the adrenaline that I enjoy about all of these things.
100%. It's kind of like you're struggling together a little bit, right? And there's that finish line at the end, like that victory for sure. You have definitely bonding moments under pressure, and then you have celebration. So it has it all. Welcome back to another episode of Life's Next Lesson Plan. I'm your host, Rachel, and today I'm thrilled to introduce you to Liz Sweet. Liz's story is one of passion, perseverance, and a commitment to making a difference. As a journalist, she's contributed to publications like the Wall Street Journal and House Beautiful magazine, covering everything from sports to architecture. But beyond her impressive writing career, Liz is also the founder of field.The, a non-profit that's empowering schools to champion women's sports. We'll be diving into Liz's journey today, exploring how she followed her intuition, combined her diverse passions, and navigated the challenges of bringing such a powerful vision to reality. Thank you for joining me for another episode of Life's Next Lesson Plan. I'm Rachel, and I started this podcast during my 29th and last year as a high school teacher. The goal of my work with Life's Next Lesson Plan, as well as my Live and Learn Patreon, is to create a connection where we are all teachers. We all have lessons and stories to share that can help others. I'm so fortunate to be able to extend the four walls of my previous classroom to an unlimited audience, where we can all learn from each other. And my guests are some of the most inspirational people with the best stories and lessons I know, which is why I want to share them with you. Their words are something everyone should hear. It is my hope that you are able to take away something from each episode to apply to your own life, whether that be a career search, path to a more fulfilling life, or new ideas on current topics. This episode of Life's Next Lesson Plan is sponsored by Literatus. Literatus is more than just a bookstore. It's a hub for connection, community, and incredible stories waiting to be discovered. Rather than sending my listeners to big online retailers, I want to encourage you to support this beloved local business. Whether you're picking up a book we've discussed on the podcast or browsing their website for your next literary adventure, Literatus has you covered. Every week on the podcast, we dive into books that inspire, challenge, and transform. And now I'm thrilled to share a way for you to get those books while supporting a local treasure. Literatus, right in my own town of Watertown. By shopping at Literatus, you're not just buying a book. You're investing in our community. And who doesn't love the smell of fresh pages while you sip one of their handcrafted drinks, enjoying the charm of your local bookstore visit? Stop in today at 401 Main Street in Watertown, or visit their social media or website to order online. Let's support the places that make our town special. I'm so excited to introduce you today to Liz Sweet, who unfortunately I never had the chance to have her in my journalism classroom, but she was a journalism student at Homestead with the journalism teacher prior to me. Shout out to you, Mrs. Locker. And she's going to talk a lot about her early days in the high school journalism classroom. But then I did reconnect with Liz. We had some mutual friends through the years. And then she, as she'll talk about today, through her recent initiative, was looking for high school journalists to help her in that capacity. And she went back to her roots of journalism class, and I was able to help her and connect a few of my students who were so excited to work with her. And we'll talk a little bit more about that today. So it's just funny how in life, your paths continue to cross sometimes. So I'm so excited to have Liz here. I know you're going to find her journey really interesting. And so I'll let her introduce herself to you and we'll get started.
Hi, Rachel. Thank you so much for having me. I'm so excited. My name is Liz Sweet. I'm a journalist. I work in a freelance capacity. I write about architecture and sports, and started off in the shelter magazine world, writing about interior design, and then sort of have evolved to the type of stories that I pitch and get to write about. And it's been a wonderful journey. I also am a nonprofit founder for field.The, which is an organization that supercharges attendance for girls' sporting events, something that's very close to my heart. And what I find really special in speaking with you is that Homestead was really just the start of all of these loves for me. I played sports at Homestead and was a passionate journalism student, very enthusiastic. I was, journalism and advanced journalism, those two classes, I loved them. But those were really where those two places and those avenues was really where my love of both of those things started. So thank you for having me. It's so nice.
Absolutely. I was reading through some of your bylines today, like from the Wall Street Journal. And, so I went down, I think, a rabbit hole on one of them about empty nesters designing their own house, because that's coming into my life soon. And I was like, these stories look so fun, but how fun to have like not only sports, but then also the other side of the architecture too.
Yeah. I mean, I have loved every story I've ever done. I tend to go deep on them. You kind of submerge yourself underwater and get to learn everything about a particular architect or designer, or just like every story is different. So I really enjoy that. It's been a great journey so far. I started wanting to do interior, like be a home editor for a shelter magazine. And I think the time that I graduated from college, it was 2010. So around 2009, which was a tricky time for media, particularly print journalism, magazine world. So there's been some evolution there, which has been really fun to see. And my journalism professors at Wisconsin did always say that we were training you for a job that wasn't created yet, and we're preparing us for that fluidity. So
yeah,
right.
Yeah. I find that so interesting that all of those jobs, a lot of the jobs that my former journalism students have now, I couldn't have told them about those jobs, especially, I started teaching 29 years ago. There's no way we could have predicted some of the things we have now.
Yeah, absolutely. And I was enjoying talking to some of your students about the digital newspaper that you do now, which is amazing, and I felt like I was like, in my day, we're cutting out layouts and doing the whole thing by hand for the print newspaper. So I really had fun following Homestead's publications, because you get to see all the fun things you guys are doing.
Yeah, I was trying to tell both the students and the person taking over my role yesterday when I was working with her about paste up, about literally, and they're like glue and like paper. And I was like, yes, I'm a dinosaur. Yes, that's what we did. Like, that's how newspapers used to be. But that is how, when I took over the program from Mrs. Locker that first year before we started doing the paper on InDesign, I remember sitting there with a glue stick and cutting out the articles. So, yeah, we're getting to that point.
My and she was an art director for Better Homes and Gardens in the 80s. And so she has this art directing experience, but being in for BHG, that whole experience of creating a magazine in a completely different generation too. So she and I would always talk about the differences when I was going through it, and now it's changed so much for me. So it's so fun to see it evolve.
Yeah, let's talk about some of those early days of your high school journalism career. Obviously, you must have signed up because you liked writing. And then when you were in the class, what were some of the things maybe that you learned or that you tried and really liked that spurred you to kind of continue that after high school?
Well, I think since I was a kid, my mom was in magazine publishing, and my dad is he was a journalism major, but both of my parents had a strong personal interest in publications. So from that standpoint, I was always interested in, we had magazines and newspapers all over the place in our house. So I was always curious, and I think I caught their curiosity too. And I loved, in the journalism program at Homestead, that you would apply to be a writer, and then you could follow the instinct of what you were interested in. So I do remember writing a story about Christmas trees, and how does that work? Because every year you have, every year you have new ones, and who grows them and what's the cycle. And so I wrote a piece about that, but that you have like a spark of an idea or some curiosity that you get to chase down. And I think Miss Locker was really just open to all sorts of ideas and encouraging just to go do that. And you would be able to kind of explore in the school too and go find sources and have interviews and be a part of that whole process. I just loved it. So there was journalism and then advanced journalism, and I just really enjoyed both classes so much.
Do you ever remember, I know one of the things that is really hard when I teach English and teach journalism, is that students in an English class, they're writing an essay for their teacher, right? And then the feedback and the criticism that they're getting is just from one person. And a big thing that I think is hard for some students who don't quite understand that journalistic articles don't just appear without going out and talking to possibly strangers, right? And like you said, pitching your own ideas that other people you think might want to read. Do you remember as a high school student dealing with that kind of feedback or criticism or?
Yeah, certainly. And considering the end reader too, which is something I do in my work, where you're like, well, this is our high school newspaper. So what do the students really want to read? What's really important and what matters versus what is your personal interest? And you're like, oh, well, I guess they probably wouldn't want to read this or that. And I think that was a helpful lesson at that age. And that's carried through, at all levels. And I work, when I'm freelance for the Wall Street Journal too, my editor will be like, okay, so why? And we'll kind of dig into certain sections of my story and be like, let's expand on this. Like, what do we need? How can we serve the end reader better? And so that's always in the back of my mind, but that started too at the high school level.
Yeah. Interesting. I've never heard that term, end reader. I need to use that now.
The person holding the magazine at the end of the day, or the person holding the whatever it is, a newspaper, it's finding them where they are and how you can help them in their journey or just serve them. What are they looking for when they pick it up? What do they hope to learn? So
yeah, definitely. Do you, as a freelance journalist, when you are getting sources, there some live sources, I'm guessing, and then some are just like research online and things like that. Does that look similar in your career to what it did in high school? And I know that there's a lot of nerves, which is typical for a high school student who's never done this before, and they may need to interview a student or a teacher they don't know. How does that translate into the professional world?
Well, it's the same. You're just refining your craft as you get older and more experienced, and every story you get better. And I'm, I'm far from my high school experience, but I still learn those things too. Like, I'm always sort of sharpening the axe, even if, it doesn't matter what you're doing. But yeah, in high school, I remember having nerves, certainly. Mm-hmm. And yes, I do. Let me think back on it. But you sort of learn that people are humans. And I find that if I'm really enthusiastic about a topic, that my interest is sort of relaxes the other person, and then they get charged. I don't know. There's something about it where it's not as scary as you think it is. Mm-hmm. When you're coming from a place of genuine enthusiasm, which fortunately I get very enthusiastic about things. So,
well, I think the more you do it too, right? Like, you get used to it. Do you still get nerves now or no?
I think I've gotten a little bit of nerves every time I sort of shift gears. When I was working in, shelter media and those types of stories, when I was first doing it, I was a little bit nervous, and then when I had an inkling, I was like, ooh, I love sports. I would love to cover sports topics. I was a little bit like, well, people go to school specifically for sports journalism. And so you have a little bit of like, oh, I wonder how this will translate. Mm-hmm. But then you just have to sort of push through that and trust your preparation, just sort of like an athlete would say, you rely on your preparation and your just knowing that you can do it. And again, once you get there with a human and you have a human conversation, everything feels better. It's the apprehension, I think, that keeps people from pushing through that. And I try my best to just move through that.
Yeah, it's a natural part of it for sure. So you knew in high school that you loved journalism and you decided you want to continue to pursue it, and you did so at Madison, correct? And so how did that look? Did you go, I think you have to wait a year to get into the journalism school at Madison, is that right?
Yeah, I have to think back to my time with the application process, but Yes, and it's a great program. And some of my professors are still there that it was very encouraging of enthusiastic. They like take a temperature if you're, are you a journalism person? You have enthusiasm, you're hungry, you know, I think it's a specific type of person that is really passionate about journalism. And I think they take the time and consideration to figure out if you're one of those people. If it's in there, it's in there.
Yeah.
If you can't do anything else, that's for you. Journalism is your go-to.
Right. Do you remember any classes or specific professors or mentors that kind of reminded you, like, I'm on the right path, this is what I want to do, or inspired you onto your career path?
Yeah, and Kathleen Culver is still there. She was a wonderful professor of mine. There was a class, there still is, there's something called Curb Magazine at Wisconsin in their journalism program where you apply to be in this magazine specific class, and it's always called Curb, this magazine you create, but each class gets to reimagine it. So I think my semester we chose to make it a men's magazine. And then some people are like, well, it'll be, it'll choose a different focus of some sort, completely reimagine it, do the branding, the different types of stories. So every year you get to choose, which I think is really fun.
Oh, is.
It's cool. And it's still called Curb, and they do, a release party, and all the writers, the students get to pick specific stories and research them. And that was a highlight for me in the journalism program in Wisconsin. It's great.
Yeah, that sounds really interesting that they continue to change it and then they print it each time.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Yeah, I still have mine. It's in my bookcase.
Of course you do.
I was so proud of it. I did a story on Iron Man, this amazing family where a bunch of family members ran Iron Man. I was just like, this is the coolest job. It's the coolest thing ever. I really enjoyed that. That was neat.
Yeah, that combines sports and journalism for you right there, right?
Yeah, it was great. You get to know the other students, and you get the sense of what it's like to be on staff at a magazine and how to work together. And I do feel like a newsroom is it's like a team. It's sports. It feels sort of the same. You're on deadline. Oh my gosh, you have to meet the moment. You have to get it done. So maybe it's the adrenaline that I enjoy about all of these things.
100%. It's kind of like you're struggling together a little bit, right? And there's that finish line at the end, like that victory, for sure. You have definitely bonding moments under pressure, and then you have celebration. So it has it all.
Yeah.
So how did you plan your steps after college? How did that look? Like, how did the application process look? Did you go right into freelance? Can you explain that journey for us a little bit?
Yeah, and I feel like I need to mention also that during my years, I went to Iowa my freshman year of college, and then Wisconsin. And at Wisconsin, when I was newly there, I had an internship with Milwaukee Home and Fine Living magazine. It was my first one. And then I had to do I was thrilled, but I got to do a number of internships before having sort of a full-time position, which I wonder if that seems like a pretty normal experience in journalism. I think I did 4 before I finally was brought on. I was an editorial assistant right out of college. Thankfully, I was so grateful for this job at Chicago Home and Garden magazine, which was a smaller design-focused magazine that was like an offshoot of Chicago Magazine. And I had an amazing editor there. Shout out to her name is Jan Parr. She was lovely. I got coffee with her recently. I just loved being her. I was an intern editorial assistant hybrid. And that was the first time being on staff as a graduate, and I just soaked it up. It was great. What did we do? We did everything because we were a small staff of 4, and we would review projects to feature, and we did blogs and social, and it was just a small group. So we had to do all sorts of things, but that was my first really positive experience post-college. And then the world was a little shaky for magazine journalism, as I mentioned, and that magazine is no longer. And at the time, Jan was so kind to me, and he was like, digital experience. It was just helping me, being like this, I think she could see that the magazine wasn't probably a long-term viable option for them. And so he suggested I get digital. And then from that point, just an important thing to stay flexible in the journalism world. I had a position with an ad agency in social media, which is what I did next. And that was really interesting and stimulating that I loved journalism. And from that point there, I had experience in social media. So then I applied for a job at Better Homes and Gardens as an associate social media editor. So I was able to get that position and then worked with PhD, running social media and building community there, which was amazing. But you have to sort of stay fluid. So it wasn't linear. And I went from sort of a magazine to an ad agency to a magazine focused on social media. That was sort of my trajectory. And then life took me in a different direction. I was an interior design focus for about 7 years. And then after that went freelance when I had my son. And freelance gave me the opportunity to be flexible and be home for him, and then to be able to write during nap time and late into the night. So just to be able to keep up with it and build my portfolio. But I went freelance later. But I wonder, I mean, I'm sure students now right out of college are taking that leap right away, I would guess.
Yeah, I do have one who does that. And she travels all over crazy places and sounds pretty glamorous, but I know she works really hard.
Yeah. And I'm grateful for the time to be in an office too, and to learn with editors in person, because I feel like that's a little harder to do now. And so I think that was a good starting point for me, to have a good understanding of what serving a publication feels like and what stories are, really meant to do, which is to serve the end reader, as I said earlier. So now in my freelance work, when I get sent projects, I sort of use my my internal arrow to decide, this story feels right for this publication because that reader is looking to learn this, or this reader is looking to likes to see these things, and this would be helpful for them. So I was lucky. I loved my editors. They really helped me to understand that it's not about me. It's about the person that picks up whatever it is that you've written for.
Yeah, that is hard, especially when you have, I'm trying to say that to high school students, even just explaining editorializing and bias, because they're so passionate, like they're pitching something that they're passionate about. And I'm like, okay, but you can't show your opinion unless you're writing an editorial, which we're not there yet. Like, so it's a really hard thing, I think, to teach, is like how not to choose words that show your bias in your reporting.
Really important lessons early on. That's great. Mm-hmm. Yeah. I mean, it is hard. Yeah. And sometimes you do feel, I think there's a line for me where I'm like, okay, I feel the passion for this, but I can be unbiased. So it's like, I feel passionate about this topic. So that's what I follow. Mm-hmm. But you have to be like an impartial, curious person.
I'm like, just say the facts, only the facts, no emotion in it. But your point about, that time that your mentor was telling you, like, you need to expand your skill set, was right around the time I think that I started teaching journalism. And I remember some students saying, well, my parents don't want me to take this because journalism is dead. And, they only want me to take classes that I'm going to find a career in. And I was like, it's not journalism is dead. It's print is changing, right? And print is being phased out for, our newspapers are turning to magazines. And then, we changed the newspaper to a glossy magazine, and that was the it thing at the time. And then we started doing the yearbook. And so eventually we turned the magazine into a website, and that's kind of where industry trends were going. But it was like, let's change the word dying to evolving or changing, which is exactly what you're talking about. Just like there's a ton of journalism, if not more journalism than there ever was, because of digital.
Yeah, 100%. I agree.
But that was a really hard argument to get across.
Yeah. And the fluidity is so important, and like the resilience, and to not be so focused on, this is what I expected, and so this is how it has to be. I've had jobs where I just loved the people that I was around, and it was journalism, but it was like, it wasn't exactly what I thought that I would be doing, but I learned something that served me so much, like later on. And you're like, oh, I'm so glad I learned that lesson there. Like, I've never had a negative work experience, because you feel like you learn something from every
Yeah, and it goes back to what you're saying, that there are jobs or roles that, again, today may not exist that 10 years from now. And that doesn't mean that it's dying. It means it's changing or evolving. But I remember just like, stop saying that. It's just changing.
Yeah, it's just, it's just being fluid, just making some changes.
Yeah.
And really changes too, because when I was at Better Homes and Gardens, social media was opening the door to get to know the editors better, to get to see our offices, to get to see, it's a brand that's so loved by so many, myself included, and really passionate readers. And I thought how wonderful they get to peek into what a photo shoot is like. They get to, see the face behind who wrote it. That was in like 2013. And so it was right when social media, people were still sort of fearful of it. It was so new. But it was sort of wonderful. I remember all of my editors were really inspiring people. And so you get the chance for people to just get to see their faces and get to know more about them.
Right.
Really interesting.
Well, I'm excited to talk about your latest passion project related to journalism that allowed us to meet again, which is your nonprofit, Fill the Stands. But I'm going to let you take a little breather here. We're going to have a little break to hear some ads, and then we'll be right back. 100% of men and women have hormones. And with the increased presence of processed foods and environmental toxins, it's more important than ever to make mindful choices in the products we use every day. That's why I trust Hue and Grace, high-performing, clean products designed to support hormone health while reducing exposure to harmful chemicals. Because this topic has been my primary focus since ending birth control in 2024 in an attempt to regulate my changing midlife hormones, after making healthy swaps in my diet, personal care products, and exercise routine, I've been able to lower my dose of anxiety medication I once relied very heavily on, and have restored balance to my nervous system and cleared up the brain fog I was experiencing in perimenopause. Hue and Grace has played a key role in this transformation, offering safe, effective, non-toxic solutions that support my wellness journey. If you listened to episode 16 with certified Mayo Clinic health and wellness coach Tracy Danielson Mitchell, you heard her talk about the importance of hormone health. To share with you everything I did throughout my journey to balance my hormones, I did a deep dive on my Live and Learn Patreon about all of the tests and supplements that I use in order to navigate this journey in my 50s. To find this episode, you can just visit patreon.com/liveandlearn. Some of my favorite products I use every day include Hue and Grace's Hydrate and Detox that contains powerful antioxidants, electrolytes, and prebiotic fiber. Their popular blue drink you see me drinking on Instagram is their Triple Boost Hormone Support Protein Powder with blue spirulina that I mix with their daily collagen supplement. I also keep my skin hydrated and smooth with their spray-on body oil. I love putting this on before going out, and it gives my aging skin a more dewy look. I've also switched out my hair care products to Hue and Grace's Your Best Hair Day line, with all natural ingredients that help nourish my hair and stretch out time between washes. If you're on this journey with me and are interested in exploring Hue and Grace's trusted non-toxic products, for 10% off and free shipping, you can use my discount link at hueandgrace.com/lessonplan and reach out anytime via email at nextlessonplan@gmail.com with questions. Live and learn with me as we focus on living fully and feeling our best. Visit hueandgrace.com/lessonplan to see how easy it is to start making some healthy swaps on your way to non-toxic living. To those of you who have followed me for a while, you know that I value mental and physical wellness. Personally, I've worked with a few different coaches over the years and even been one myself. If you are looking for education and support in your own wellness journey, I would love to invite you to the wellness community I am currently in that keeps me accountable daily with my nutrition and movement. If you are a Facebook user, you can search for our free group called Team MG. This group is led by my coach, Megan Grimord, who is a certified trainer and nutrition coach. She offers lots of education and support for your wellness journey. If you want to get to know Coach Megan more, you can follow her on Instagram at all lowercase Megan, MEGAN _Grimord, GRIMORD, or even listen to her on episode 10 of the podcast. She has also created a discount code for my listeners. Just go to her website, www.team-mg.com, and enter code LessonPlan10 to get $10 off any of her premium coaching packages for the first month. Coach Megan is a busy mom like me who works full-time, so I appreciate her practicality mixed with some tough love to keep me going. It is time for Ask the Teacher Anything. So question 1, what kind of guests or topics are you most excited to explore? Well, I've had a ton of fun already with the guests and the topics that we've been exploring, but I will say I have 2 guests, like my next 2 guests, who again are people I have not met in person in life, did not know them prior to my podcasting journey. One, I'll just give you a little hint, has, oh my gosh, such an amazing book and just life philosophy. And like, I'm used to being surrounded by like brilliant people with large vocabularies who are super articulate, and she blew my mind. And then a guest that I'm recording with this week that will come shortly after that guest is, oh my gosh, like super boss babe, professional in like money mindset and energy with money. And I know that's something that I've been talking a lot about. So I am so excited for you to hear their episodes. And second question, any must-have items you're going to be bringing along for your camping journey? Woohoo! Yeah, we're just a couple weeks out here from picking up our baby camper. And we actually this weekend bought a couple things for it. But me personally, I will be bringing my weighted blanket. I actually have 2, and one is in the storage unit. Because when I sleep, especially if I'm like a little uneasy, I need my weighted blanket. I've been wearing a sleep mask now for like 6 months or so to block out any light. As you can tell, sleep is like really important to me. And I never travel without a trusty water bottle. So probably a Yeti or something. Need to find a way. Usually when we travel, even when we stay in hotels and stuff, we go buy fresh water to have with us. I don't know. We're nerds like that. So those will probably be some items that will be must-haves on the road. We are back from break, and I'm so happy that Liz is going to have a chance to talk about her passion project. As she has said already in this episode, she gets really excited about her ideas and her passions, and this definitely blends all of her strengths and her interests and all of the work that she has been doing, and it's centered on female empowerment, which I just love. And 2 of my wonderful journalists who work so hard and both have an interest in this. When I ask them about it, their faces just light up and they get so excited. So I'm really happy that they have this opportunity to work with Liz as well. So how did your nonprofit Fill the Stands come about? When? How? Tell us the scoop.
Oh, that's how I feel about it. I just love talking about it. It lights me up. So it starts back in high school at Homestead. I played basketball and soccer and track and cross country, but basketball was my favorite, and it was something that meant a lot to me. And I loved every minute of that experience. But I did notice during my time playing that there was an attendance discrepancy between girls basketball and boys basketball and football, and subtle. It wasn't subtle in terms of attendance, but it is sort of a subtle message that I think female athletes get when they have difference in attendance numbers. And I remember being like 15 and thinking, what is happening? Like, and bringing it up and trying to talk to people about it. And I think the energy at that time, it was, early 2000s, was sort of like, oh, well, it is what it is, essentially. Which I think a lot of female athletes probably heard and have felt that messaging over the years. And then I just noticed currently that is still an issue. And I felt when I was going through it, I had a lot of questions about that. And I just wondered, where people were and how, and it feels sort of, I think, silently deflating for girls if the attendance numbers aren't rich and enthusiastic. Especially being from Wisconsin, where it's such a rich, passionate sports culture. Being a big Packer fan growing up, and you see the enthusiasm in community sport in a lot of different areas in Wisconsin, and I just wasn't seeing that for girls my age in my high school experience. So fast forward many years later, I'm a mom, I'm a journalist, and I have these journalistic skills and start writing about sports, and started to sort of get interested in attendance and why it matters and why we're still seeing some of these issues for girls sports. And so that's where field.The really was born, was trying to make change in that space and to drive community support to support female athletes so they feel like, my efforts matter because my community is showing up for me. Mm-hmm. So that was really the start of it. At Homestead, I reached out to the head coach of the girls basketball program at the time. We had coffee, and I was thinking I would start an alumni group at Homestead to reconnect with my former players and to sort of keep people informed with how the team was doing in hopes that maybe we could supercharge a game at some point. And so that was sort of the start of me sort of testing and seeing how that would go. And so we did an alumni game at Homestead just before we officially launched Field.The to sort of see if we could get people there and how it would go and what would draw people in. And so then it was great. I felt like it was a great success, and it was wonderful to see old friends. And we did see more attendance, like our corner of the alumni group. It was full, and it was fun to see that sort of support for our girls teams. And I feel really hopeful that we can do that for a lot of different sports and basketball, and just sort of supercharge the enthusiasm around girls sports so that girls don't feel that way who are playing now and in the future. Mm-hmm. But that was where the impetus was for it.
And so I mentioned, obviously, that I do have a couple students who are working with you and have earned board positions with you. And so how do you see their roles helping you in, your goals that you have?
Yeah. Okay. So for the alumni game, I reached out to you, Rachel. You're so kind. I said, well, I have this journalism background at Homestead. I played sports at Homestead. I wonder if we could have some of the journalism students, if they might be interested in supporting girls sports or future sports writers or future female sports professionals. Maybe they'd be interested in covering the game just to drum up additional attendance for the game and to draw more attention to the girls, the players, and the competition. So they did a wonderful job, and they came. They were so enthusiastic and so talented, and they had amazing ideas. They covered the game for the publication at Homestead, and they did a live stream on Facebook. And so that was it was a combination of my two. It was just sort of full circle and wild, but it's a really wonderful way to just help people remember that, the games are happening and that we can go, and what it means for girls to have full stands. So we have a junior advisory board. It's our first time doing it. We have 6 amazing high school students, 2 of which were participated with me on that alumni game and are so lovely. And they're working to create something we're calling a toolkit, which will be on fieldthestands.org on our website at the start of the 2025 school year. But it's essentially a overview of how to supercharge attendance in your school. So any school could download it from anywhere and implement some of these changes to help drive attendance. And they're going to help us design it in Canvas. So they're going to use some of their yearbook skills and their journalism reporting skills and add color to it. And I would love, for them to do additional interviews with athletes. Through this work, I've had a chance to talk to other female high school athletes and ask them if this is an issue that they notice too. And I hear it time and time again, yes. And I notice this too. And we have low attendance for this sport and this sport. And so really amplifying the voices of female athletes and having that included also as something to do.
Yeah, that's really exciting that once the toolkit is created, that it's available for anyone who's looking to get, this initiative started in their school. And I know you mentioned that you started with the basketball program because that's where your roots are. But I think my students were telling me that maybe they're going to try softball, something similar to what you did with basketball with the softball program.
Yes. And I mean, all sports. We really have ideas of doing, so on our junior advisory board, we have girls that are doing flag football and swim. And, we have all sorts of athletes in different fields, which is so great so that we can learn how to, improve attendance in all of these areas. I was at a conference recently and met a bunch of girls that were on a new girls wrestling team. That was a new initiative. And they of course noticed a huge discrepancy in attendance for their meets, and to talk to them and be like, how can we support you? What kind of attendance how many stands, how many people come, or how many people can we get there? And every sport is different, certainly, in how you support attendance for them. And it's fun to figure out what the, skeleton key is. Essentially, how do we get as many people to support as possible? But yeah, the toolkit that our amazing junior advisory board is helping us to create will be, I hope, just really helpful resource for high schools everywhere, anywhere. It's exciting.
That is really awesome. So when you knew, you're talking a lot about just like following your passions and, following your interests, and then also how can you be of service and help something that was so important to you? How did you come up with the idea like, oh, I'm going to start a nonprofit? And what does that look like? I have zero idea or experience with that.
Well, I just felt like I wanted to do something to be helpful that was purpose driven and to be able to just be like purely in support of female athletes. So a nonprofit to me, I thought, well, let's raise money and be able to support these programs. And, sometimes schools just don't realize that there's maybe an imbalance in resources or funds or attendance. And it's just traditional allocation of those things, and they're not really thinking through these things. Or sometimes schools don't have the resources to support. So I think I was thinking I'd love to come in and offer grants to schools and to be able to make their girls sporting competitions really dynamic events to drive attendance. I think just the nonprofit angle of it, I really just wanted it to be just like pure good, just like, let's just put the good into the world and without thinking about anything other than the girls on the court.
Mm-hmm. Did you have to do research into how I wouldn't know the first thing about setting that up, or did you have background in that?
Well, certainly my journalism background of being a very, enthusiastic researcher really came in handy. Yeah, I think those skills of having an idea and, I'm willing to ask questions. I love asking people that have, really interesting backgrounds. How did you do it? What did you why did you feel passionately about it? What's worked for you? Just a lot of research and questions and time, online, and just trying to, learn as much as I can. But I do think I don't really fear trying something that I've never done before, because when you're a freelance journalist, you have to do a lot of things that feel sort of uncomfortable. You have to occasionally send a cold email. You have to risk not hearing back from somebody. You have to sort of put yourself out there on a repeated basis. And I think over time, that's sort of lowered my fear in terms of just asking if you can do something, which I think is really interesting. And I think it's been a really good confidence builder for me. And so now I'm just like, oh, so if I send a cold email and they don't reply, that's fine, oh, well, at least maybe I learned something, or at least I followed that idea through the end. And I don't know. I don't really fear jumping in 2 feet. Usually, if you have good intentions, somebody will help and it'll work out.
Yeah, that's such a great point about, I'm always talking about the soft skills that journalism teaches, right? it's oh my goodness, as you mentioned earlier, deadlines with time management and collaboration and communication and leadership, and just that idea of getting out of your comfort zone where we talked about earlier, that first interview. I mean, or setting up the interview, reaching out to someone that you don't know. I mean, those all build into what you're talking about now, is jumping headfirst into the unknown, right? So yeah, that's a great point. So I think, as we kind of wrap up here and talk about some of the lessons that you have shared, I mean, a big theme today definitely is following your heart and following your passions. And you've done such a beautiful job of melding all of your interests. They always say if you enjoy what you're doing for work, it doesn't feel like work, right? And so that's why I called it a passion project for you, although I know you've put in hours and hours of work. Is there anything else that you want to leave the listeners with today, just about overall lessons or takeaways from your journey? I think also, too, I'd love for some of the listeners I know are people who are kind of at a career crossroads, whether that means that they're starting out in their career or they have spent a lot of time in their career. And I think your message today has a lot to do with following your heart and your passion. So kind of summing up, your overall thoughts today and any advice or lessons that you have for the listeners.
Yeah, I think for me, I think as I've gotten older, I've started to just trust my experience and just trust that when you jump for something that you feel really purpose-driven and passionate about, that it will sort itself out. And I think at the root of everything, from high school to now, I really wanted to be helpful for people in the types of content and stories that I write and I create. And so stepping into Fill the Stands and just focusing on how to serve and try to take yourself out of it. I think the times that I've gotten nervous is when I'm a little bit too in my own head about, it's not about us. It's not about me. Ultimately, it's about, the girls on the court and about, I also coach 6th grade girls basketball. It's really important and a passion of mine. And I think a lot about what they learn by observing my choices. I'm brave and trying something that I feel is important and something I want to create and put into the world. I hope that they will find courage when they have a calling to do something too. So, whether that's, sending a pitch email, a cold email to somebody that might be a little intimidating, but, that's kind of a brave thing. You can do that. There's not really a big, there's not a big downside to that, I think, in just following your cue. I believe in this idea. I have an idea. I'd like to send it to you. Having the confidence to do that. And then if you want to pivot careers, trusting your experience and that people are, if you're serving the greater good, it'll usually work out.
That's such great advice. Yes, I love that. So I will put, like I said, all Liz's links and contact information in the show notes. They have a beautiful website for Fill the Stands. It's so interactive and so cool. I remember showing it to the students when you first reached out and they were like, oh, so you have to definitely just go check that out and look at all their upcoming initiatives. Thank you again, Liz, for taking all this time and being here today.
Joy, I'm so grateful. Thank you so much.
I hope you found value in Liz's journey today. It's a powerful reminder that when we allow our passions to guide us and we commit to persevering through challenges, incredible things can happen. Her work in both the world of journalism and the impactful mission of Fill the Stands is a perfect example. To stay connected and receive bonus content, make sure you subscribe to our email newsletter. Just email us at lifesnextlessonplan.com to join the list. For more personal connection and exclusive lessons, I invite you to explore my Live and Learn Patreon. Just visit patreon.com/liveandlearn. And as always, you can find Life's Next Lesson Plan on Instagram, Facebook, and YouTube. We are down to less than 40 days of my teaching career. So I do a video a day on YouTube to count that down. As always, if you have suggestions for future guests or topics, please don't hesitate to reach out.